This is being recorded. Welcome back to the Taking the Lead video podcast where anything can happen, and it just did. And if you're a returning guest or a new guest, you know that we get to interview leaders, mostly from the PR, comms, and marketing fields who I really respect and I'm aware of. Quite often, it's someone I've been friends with for decades. In today's case, it's going to be someone I've been admiring from afar. So I'm so thrilled to have her on the show. It's Charlene Wheeless. Let me tell you a bit about her. She's a corporate communications and marketing leader with more than 30 years experience in global companies, most recently at Bechtel Corporation. She is currently the founder of her namesake firm, Charlene Wheeless LLC. Well, who else would be the founder? That makes sense. And she currently serves as a senior advisor for equity and justice at the very well-known global communications firm APCO Worldwide. She is chairman of the Page Society. She's a public speaker. Like me, she's an executive coach and advisor. And most recently, she is an author. We're going to talk about that in a bit. She's been named by PR Week as one of the 50 most influential PR professionals in the industry for 5 consecutive years. She was also named to the PR Hall of Fame, the PR Global Power Book, and the 2017 Network Journal's 25 most influential Black women in business. So I am honored to welcome Charlene Wheeless.
Thank you, Ken. It's really nice to be here with you and with your listeners.
Great. So here we are, and we're going to dig right in as we always do. So you've said a very compelling quote. Women face a glass ceiling and Black women face a concrete wall. So what is your best advice to women of color who want to break through that ceiling and get around that wall?
Right. That's, that's always an interesting question. And what I'd like to tell people is, particularly Black women and others for that matter, first and foremost is to recognize that there is a concrete wall. For a lot of people, that's a new concept. We've all heard about the glass ceiling, but what is this new thing called the concrete wall? And it's not so new. It has always existed, and it is unique to Black and brown women. Then it simply means that once you break that glass ceiling, you can't see if there is anything more for you. And so, it's easy for people to think that if you've achieved a certain level of success, if you're a Black woman, then I'm going to be satisfied with that. But what we fail to recognize is that there is more. There may be more available to us, and we need to go find it. And so what I recommend to people is, one, pay attention to what's going on around you in your company and do your homework. If you're a vice president and your predecessor was a senior vice president, then find out why. Ask those questions. Why would that person be capable of being a senior vice president when you're doing the exact same job, yet you're stopped at being a vice president? So do your homework in that sense. And also, this is a great time to find a champion or several champions who can advocate for you. Because where that concrete wall exists, you cannot break it down on your own. It was built to keep you out. So you need help, and go get that help, because there are people who will help you. But if you think, I'm here at this high level, if I put my head down and work really hard, I'm going to get to that next level that may not have been available to me. I'm sorry to be so blunt, but sometimes tough love is needed. You're not going to get there by putting your head down and working hard only. You need the champions, the people who are in the room when you're not.
So I'll ask you an unplanned follow-up question.
Sure.
Those of us who would like to be an ally to Black and brown women in the industry, what can we do?
Well, I love this this idea and this terminology of being an ally. And, I think people can start small as allies, which is when you see any kind of injustice or in any kind of bias, bring it up. talk about it, make the people who are not just on the receiving end, but who are on the giving end of that bias to recognize what they're doing. I mean, it's called unconscious bias for a reason, right? It's unconscious. So when you see it, call it out. At the same time, when you're in meetings and people are talking about talent or they're talking about a project, bring up the minority, male or female, that you're working with and say, hey, did you know that Charlene really did a great job in contributing to this? Or really did, something outstanding here or in those talent meetings? Because what often happens, it's not that we are purposefully overlooked, it's that we're not thought of to begin with. So I think one of the most important things that an ally can do is make sure that the Black and brown women and men in your orbit are not invisible, because we are often made to feel invisible.
That's good counsel. That's for maybe an individual ally, which is very helpful. But what do you think the PR industry as a whole must do to create needed change in these areas?
Well, I think that to some extent, the same thing applies, right? Recognize that there is an issue, recognize that you have blind spots, and find people who can point out those blind spots to you. That's a lot of what I do in my work and in coaching. And I think with, particularly in the PR industry, we just have to get off of our butts and do it. And do something and make change, because from my perspective, it's ridiculous that a profession that is known for forward thinking is struggling with this issue, especially when you think about the clients that we serve are not monolithic. They're not all homogeneous. So I tell my PR leaders and managers, stop hesitating and stop iterating on what's the right thing to do and do something. And I've often encouraged leaders to say, if you have a search for XYZ executive, only interview Black and brown people for that job. And the response I often get back is, well, that wouldn't be fair. And they're right. But you know what? The last 400 years haven't been fair. Right? The fact that McKinsey has a study out that says that Black professionals will achieve parity in the workplace in 99 years is not fair. So let's stop making excuses and do something. And I sometimes take a little bit of a hard line on this because, my life has never been fair because of my gender and the color of my skin. So I don't want to hear that as an excuse anymore, just in case someone out there is thinking and saying, okay, well, I can't find talent, et cetera. Let me just clear this up for you. It is not a pipeline issue. Black and brown talent is out there. Go find them, right? And if you don't think that you have room, make room, right? But yeah, I'm sorry. It's just so often, we live in this scarcity society that says if a Black woman or Black male ascends to this position, it's at the cost of someone else. We have the power to make the pie bigger. So make it bigger.
Our PRSA New Jersey chapter in the last year has done, I'm so proud, an amazing job of programming around this issue starting last year. And one of those, I wish I could remember the speaker's name, but they were saying that they hear that it was an HR person, and they say they hear the complaint, there's no one out there, there's no one in my network. And she takes a hard line and says, well, whose fault is that? Why haven't you built your network with more women and more Black and brown people? Like, that's not a network issue. That's a you issue.
Exactly.
Build the network, the talent is out there. And she's tough around it. And I think, I think that's the right stance. So moving on to something else, you're the author of, and I want to read it and get it exactly right, You Are Enough, Reclaiming Your Career and Your Life with Purpose, Passion, and Unapologetic authenticity. Why do you
Right.
believe that authenticity is so critical to leadership effectiveness?
Well, can people work for people, right? They don't really work for companies, they work for people. And I think transparency is the new norm these days. And if you're a company that is not authentic and transparent, you'll never have trust with your employees. And I believe those employees increasingly will vote with their feet. And we're hearing about this a lot with the concerns around the great resignation, right? That's happening. Additionally, I think when you can't be authentically you, you can't bring your best to work. You might be able to give your most, but you can't give your best because you're not allowed to be you. And I spent a 30-year career, and I'm very proud of my career and what I've been able to achieve, but it has been at the cost of sometimes being authentically myself, because you mold yourself to fit into what I think is an outdated norm. And after going through an illness and a 4-year battle for my health, and coming up for air, I only knew how to be sick because I had spent the last 4 years being sick. So I had to think about, who am I? Who authentically am I? And does that fit into the life that I've spent 30 years building? And I found out that it didn't any longer. And I believe, as I've had time to think about it, and particularly in writing the book, people need to be able to be successful being authentically them. And I think that they can be successful being authentically them, and that we don't have to buy into, this system of bias that's constantly telling us that we don't measure up. That's part of the reason why the name of the book, which is so incredibly long, but that's the reason why the book starts with "You are enough," right? Is so that people understand that just because someone makes you feel that you're not enough, or that you don't measure up, or says that you're this, because of the color of your skin or your gender or whatever it is that makes you different, doesn't mean that you have to accept it, own it, and become it, right? Because there is a price to pay for that, in doing that. And I feel so strongly and so passionate about authenticity, and both within yourself and with companies. I think it's just past time for companies to stop pretending, right? I think back to, the trauma of the past 18 months, and particularly a lot of it started with the very visible murder of George Floyd, and companies came out with their statements and their promises and this. I have more respect for the companies who said nothing and did nothing than I do for the companies who said something and did nothing. Right. So I just think that we are in an age of authenticity and realness, if you will. And I don't think we're going back.
Good. Let's hope. And I think, to one of your points, I believe that followers follow authentic leaders. That
Exactly.
authenticity just reverberates, and it's
Mhm.
magnetic, literally, and it attracts followers, and
Mhm.
it spreads influence, I believe.
Right.
So authenticity, I think, is so critical. And going back to something you said, whether it's the turnover tsunami or the great resignation, same thing.
Mhm.
People who have not been looking for work are taking calls. And if
Mhm.
they were working for either a toxic leader, a toxic culture, uh, underpaid versus their
Mhm.
contributions, not versus their experience, but versus their
Right.
contributions, they are going to be looking to get out. And I
Mhm.
think those leaders who have been authentic and courageous, and so many other things we could say makes for a great leader, they
Mhm.
still may lose some people.
Right.
It's a wave, but I do believe they will do a better job of holding on to their people. And it's about a lot more than money, right? If you look at the
Oh.
generations in the workforce now,
Mhm.
they yearn for authenticity, in their leaders and in their
Mhm.
peers and in the brands that they relate to,
Absolutely.
right? So this is so vital right now at, I
Mhm.
think, multiple levels.
Right.
So, you mentioned your sickness. In the book, you deal
Mhm.
very honestly with your
Yes.
multi-year battle with
Mhm.
cancer.
Mhm.
How do you believe that battling cancer has made you a more effective leader of others and of yourself?
I think after having cancer, and as I said, once the smoke cleared, I kind of looked up and I didn't recognize the life I was in. And I realized that I didn't fit into the life that I had spent so long building. And that was heart wrenching for me because I didn't know how to be anything else. But what I did learn throughout the process, particularly when I did try to go back into my old job, is the importance as a leader of giving people grace, right? Allowing people grace, because everybody has a story, and just because someone looks the way they used to or looks like they're fine, if they've gone through something, just maybe they're not fine. Maybe they're actually falling apart inside or they're struggling. And so I think for me as a leader, I have really, with cancer, it's taught me the importance of grace, the importance of showing vulnerability, especially now, being human and letting people know that it's okay to not always be okay. Leaders are spend so much time trying to be perfect, right? The perfect facade for their organization. Well, the perfect facade is no facade, is to be authentically you. And if you hurt, you hurt. If you're happy, you're happy. If you're sad, you're sad. And all of it is okay. And so my journey has really led me to be a more authentic leader and to really encourage people to be authentically themselves. And I think the dividends, I think what you get back will be tenfold, 10 times the value than what you might expect that it would. And I think in writing the book, or if I can go back just a little bit, Ken, when I had cancer, and it was supposed to be kind of a 7-month traditional treatment. You have a few body parts cut off, you go through chemo, you go through radiation, and then you're done and you walk back into your life. And that's what I expected. Um, I did not expect a 4-year battle for my health. And I happen to be a religious person, and so I never asked why I had cancer, but I often would ask, "What am I supposed to do with this?" And I do believe that when something negative happens to you, that you have a responsibility to turn it into something positive for other people. And so that's what my book became. Is I've gone through this experience with my health. I've also gone through the experience of climbing the ladder as a Black female executive, often being the only, right, and being at the table, but on the outside at the same time. And so, the book became my purpose, it became my mission. And I began to understand, people talk about their legacies and, what kind of legacy do they want to build or do they want to leave? For me, legacies are built by the people whose lives you touch along the way, right? And that's really what the book showed me. And that as a leader, you know, part of my contribution has been to pave the way for others, but my legacy is really the people who I have inspired, motivated, strengthened along the way. And all of that is a very long answer to your question of how it has changed me as a leader, but it has been a complete change. And every day I try to lean into my mission and lean into my purpose because I take it very seriously.
Wonderful. So before we break, I want to restate it's You Are Enough, reclaiming your career and your life with purpose, passion, and unapologetic authenticity. I don't think it's too long. I think it captures what it's about, and it creates a compelling reason to purchase it. So where can our viewers find the book?
So you can find the book on Amazon. Amazon has everybody's book, right? You can
In outer
find the book on,
space.
right. Yes, you can find the book on Amazon and on barnesandnoble.com. I believe some other big box stores are carrying it as well online. Target, I believe, is carrying it as well as Walmart. You can also shoot me an email on my website because I sell it at a discount from both of those companies or those stores. And my website is charlenewheeless.biz. And so you can, on the contact page, you can shoot me a note and I will send you, and if you purchase it from me, I send you an autographed copy.
Oh my.
Yeah.
How can you resist?
I know, maybe that'll be really valuable one day.
And we have this recording, which is going to be very valuable
Right.
to our viewers. So thank you so much, Charlene. You know, there are times on the podcast we reach out to friends and acquaintances and people, you know, and then there are times we reach out to leaders we want to know. And I'm so thrilled to have gotten to know you a little bit this morning, and for our viewers to get to know you. Continued health, continued success with the book. And I'm so glad you spent time with us today. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And if no one's told you today, Ken, you are enough.
Thank you. It's good to be, I think I am, but it's good to be reminded.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.